Don't forget to like and subscribe.
It's Jim Keller, everybody. Good evening, everyone. I know that it never fails to make you laugh, George.
Yes.
Having Jim Keller saying, "Don't forget to like and subscribe." Yeah. I love it too. I'm glad that he's always game for that. And but it's been a while.
Yes, it has.
This has been very impromptu arranged as well.
Yes. Yes.
Despite us being together halfway around the world last week.
It does appear as if, yes, we can see. Hello, Vince. But we can see the chat in the right-hand corner. Okay, that's neat.
New feature in our streaming platform. I do need to check to see if it's working on my smartphone.
Do you really want me to talk about the pen, Jordan?
We can get onto it. Hey everyone, thanks for coming in. Yeah, like I was saying, George and I were in Taipei last week, but because of hook and by crook, and because of a variety of things, we didn't manage to get together for a tech routine. That's not necessarily because interesting stuff was going on, but stuff that was taking time went on. For last week, and we might get into this in the show, for the last week, even though, and this is kind of like why the thumbnail for this video is the way that it is, while there wasn't any big announcements, it felt like a very busy show.
Indeed.
Just engagement with not only meeting people that we only meet at Computex, but it just ended up being one thing after another thing after another thing after another thing. And I'm not just talking about Steve trying to track down ASRock or Nvidia or all sorts of things going on like that. I went to Computex with like 2 meetings booked. Like normally back
I had more than that. I actually so at Computex, I basically gave a whole bunch of people an excuse to go. So I was lucky enough to have enough people to split and take up some of the time that I was otherwise.
Yeah, I referred to your entourage.
Yes.
Because George went around in a posse of what, 6 people, 7 people?
6, including myself. I basically just gave a whole bunch of people a reason to go to Taipei.
And no, what you've done is you've found the golden rule. Almost anyone can apply for a press pass.
True.
Because there were people in your team that have no writing credit on Chips and Cheese, but they were there.
Actually, technically, that only applied to one person.
Computex usually requires a writing credit within the last 6 months. But if you say cameraman or editor, they're quite flexible.
Yeah. So, okay, then that would make it 2 people. But other than that, technically they've all written. Yes.
Yeah. It was just me and my editor Dom from my side. Again, it's the reason why I've titled the video the way that I have, or at least the thumbnail, the fact that it's called Treat Yourself is because we really need to treat ourselves given what's been going on.
So speaking of treating myself, or more specifically, so
George likes pens. George likes pens. So that's the preface for this.
Knows, I write a lot of notes by hand. I don't actually type them out, which is weird. But we were in Taipei, and my original Computex 2023, I had bought a very nice Lamy 2000 pen. At Supercomputing 24, it unfortunately broke. As you can see, the plastic on this side completely sheared off, which made this effectively unrepairable. So at Computex, I was we went to Taipei 101, and there's a Lamy store in Taipei 101. So I was sort of pining after a pen, and I had Jordan from Jordan's Tech Junk, Jeff from
WD.
Craft Computing, and Andy from my team there. And I was basically forced into buying a very nice Lamy Emporium pen with a this camera is not particularly good, but you can see the gold tip on it. So I was basically forced into buying that.
What was it called?
Lamy Emporium.
A Lamy Emporium.
IMPORIUM.
Lamy, LAMI.
LAMY.
Okay. This isn't that's for some reason I click the link and it just takes me to the homepage. Okay. I believe it's this one.
Yeah, so we had 6 minutes. Yeah, it's the fountain pen, not the rollerball, but
okay.
yeah.
That was just the first thing that came up.
Yeah.
Now, how much was it?
All said told about 600 USD
for a pen.
Yes, mind you, the pen that broke at supercomputing on my birthday, nonetheless, was about 650.
Yes, you should have got Linus to give you a scribe driver. My recommendation, and I like a good pen. I don't write a lot, but I do like a good pen. I recommend the Uniball 1P. Or the Uniball 1. You can get it for about $6. And it is like gliding. So
I wish I had gotten Jordan's first reaction to writing with pen. It was hilarious. But this, for the record, this is the second ink cartridge, and I'm already about 20% through it.
Pens are like wine.
Yeah.
You know, it's I always remember going through high school, that transition where you're allowed to write in pen now, and just how often you'd write with really crappy utensils. But if you can get a really nice pen for $6, rather than the 20p Bic ones we always used to write with. But yeah, but you had that fun, and Computex was, well, Computex was you buying pens, clearly.
Yes, that's all I did.
I am going to have to share something. Hopefully this will actually. I'm going to have to upload this. Talks amongst yourselves for a second while I find it.
Yeah, so to delve in a little bit more about the story, we had 7 minutes into our reservation at Din Tai Fung, which is
with that, let's move on. Sorry.
And basically, Jeff grabbed me by the shoulder and said, "We're buying you're buying a pen whether you like it or not." And yeah.
Okay, so my highlight of last week, and we're still in the pre-show here, but I want to share this. My highlight of last week is that I had the most stupid idea for some content, and I spoke to Jeff from Craft Computing, who's here in the chat. I literally gave him like 3 or 4 words, and he's like, "I'm in. What do we need to do?" We gathered Wendell together. We got Luke from LMG, and Jordan, who's also in the chat. He came around. and we ended up having an audience. And I think it's best if I just play the video. Now, I'll let this go on for a few minutes. There's 2 segments to this. It's not edited properly in any way. The sound is a bit off and the framing still needs to go through and whatever. But I do want to share this with you. And please do put your thoughts in the comments. This will be a full-blown episode. This is a special preview just for the people who pay attention to the notifications on their phone and have notifications on this channel enabled to see it. If it goes live, we may cut it out. So, yeah. This is where George and I shut up and we just watch. There's a bit in the middle I may fast forward through.
I'm going to do the words and I'm going to do the hand motions.
Axe it out.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yep.
All right, welcome to Short Circuit. We have a brand new green-looking 8GB GPU for you today. I'm sure you're very excited for it. You won't be able to buy it. It will cost way too much, but it does look kind of cool, although this version, unfortunately, does not have any form of flow-through because all of the cool features are locked behind a multi-$1,000 price tag. Now, you can see here that despite not having flow-through, there are 2 fans. They're not too big, as this card is not too powerful.
Not too effective.
You're probably better off. You're probably better off buying a used one somewhere. You can watch Scrapyard Wars for that. Click up there in the. Oh! I grew another arm. Click up there in the corner for that. You can see here on the top we've got our power connector, which is pretty standard. On the bottom there, that's that thing that you plug into your motherboard. Who knows what that is these days? On the back, you've got your I/O, pretty standard. You can check out the website to see more details on that. But this is an unboxing of a graphics card, so there's really not that much else to say. If you want to check out performance, go watch someone else's video.
Well done. Amazing, amazing. So for the next one, I'm going to ask Jeff to sit on Wendell's lap and attempt to demonstrate.
Oh, come here, big guy. Okay, there we go.
So this pair are going to attempt to demonstrate proper thermal paste technique.
Oh, no.
All right. So
It's over.
So there's a number of ways that you can apply thermal paste to your CPU, but I'm going to show you the one proper way that you can do this. So today we're going to be demoing on the all-new Threadripper Pro 96 core because, you know, you got a lot of room on there. Make sure it's on there well. So first we're going to socket that CPU down. Go ahead and put it down into the socket. Close the retention bracket just like that. Oh yes, I'm very good at this. Make sure to get that torque screwdriver.
Wait. Retention bracket? What not? Screws.
Well, you got to close the lid and then you screw it down.
Oh, okay.
My arms have a mind of their own right now. Anyway, you've got a torque screwdriver. Make sure to turn it until it clicks. 1, 2, and then 3. There you go. Now your CPU is properly in its socket. Now for this, we're going to be using Thermal Grizzly, the only thermal paste that has a grizzly on it.
Not sponsored by Thermal Grizzly.
Not sponsored by Thermal Grizzly. All right, we're going to do one nice long line down the middle of the CPU. That's about good. Yeah, I like that. Now, I like to do the 3-line method. So we're going to do one more line on the side and then come back to me. One more line right there. That is perfect.
That sounds like a good weekend.
Yeah, that's a happy little line right there. All right, we're going to take our CPU cooler. In this case, we're going to be using just a standard air cooler. Plunk that right down on top. Perfect. Yeah, that looks nice right there. All right, now we're going to install the screws. Go ahead and grab your very long screwdriver provided by the heatsink company because apparently they're compensating for something. All right, put that screwdriver down in there. Turn it nice and slow. Yeah. There you go. All right. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Don't enjoy it too much.
Your heatsink is now installed. You now know how to install thermal paste. Thanks so much for watching. Link down in the description to all the other weird things that I do on the channel.
And yeah, we spent an evening
And I have that
filming
exact screwdriver he was talking about.
the one where they're compensating for stuff.
Yes.
It's and here's me trying to get out of my stubby. It was an idea I had very hastily, and we all got together. The fact that there was an audience was amazing. We're in the process of fully editing that video. I think we filmed for just over an hour. We did a few of the very standard improv-y whose line is it anyway games, and it took a few minutes for everybody to get going, but it turns out nerd humor is pretty damn funny. So please do stay tuned for that full episode over here on Tech Potato. So glad that we could do it with everyone get together all at the same time. I mean, the only time all of us like that get together is either CES or Computex, really. Unless you want a super nerd version of Hot Chips or Super Computer.
That would be hilarious.
I don't know. It might be for the very super nerdy.
Yeah. And as Crispy puts in chat, we can name it Whose Hardware Is It Anyway?
Yeah, I just call it Segfault and Friends instead. So yeah, we'll get on to that. We do actually have a show to talk about today.
We have a show?
Yeah, this is what we're here for. So let's get that started as I slowly overheat in this room as my box for some reason says it's on. So let me move some stuff onto my screen so I can read it properly. So, hi everyone, and welcome to the Tech Poutine, the weekly-ish podcast from More Than More. I'm Ian Cuttress, also known as Chips, and you can, and my co-host is George Cosma, also known as Cheese. And if we had a guest, they would be the Gravy, making a lovely Tech Poutine. Unfortunately, there's no guest today, but we have had a number of interviews recently, so they're coming through. You should check those out when they're posted. Also, if we had a sponsor, here's where we might put it. If you do wish to sponsor the show, do let us know. Now, also note, we do accept and read super chats out on the air if they do not demonetize the channel. And at the end of the episode, if there's time, we'll cover all your questions. I actually have a hard stop, I guess, in a little over 2 hours here, because I have some very fun meetings to attend. But this is episode 25. George, say hello.
Hello, you finer enough folks.
And yeah, this show we want to cover a few things. One, especially, given how slow Computex was this year, go into a little bit of that. But
I wouldn't say slow so much as no headliners. Big.
We'll get into that. But yeah, and then if we get time, we also want to cover Nvidia just announced a buttload of money again. Intel has some really interesting workstation cards I think we want to get into. We may talk about Nvidia's situation with reviewers and everything else. AMD's got some new cards and stuff, and there's a number of new stories we're going to cover at the end in tech boxes. So please strap in, because we've got a number of interesting things to talk about. And start with, let's speak about Computex last week. So I just want to say, last week was perhaps, not only was it one of the slowest Computexes I've ever been to, it was one of the busiest weeks ever. And not due to what I said in the pre-show. We had Computex that week, Dell Tech World, Google I/O, Microsoft Build, IMEC Futures, also known as ITF World. I think Siemens had an event in Munich. Embedded Vision was last week as well. Yeah. So either which way you slice it, you could have gone to 3 that week. Yeah. And especially for the stuff that we're interested in, silicon and chips and architecture and semiconductor manufacturing. Last week was a busy week. This week, I'm sure has been off of your and my radar is ECTC, which is a packaging
is
conference.
It?
Yes.
Oh.
Funny enough, my briefing from Intel for it was last week. And the stuff that, was yesterday. And they were talking about the talks that were currently being given at the time I was having my briefing.
That's funny.
That's how out of the loop and how busy we've all been and how these things just don't come together at the right time. For a slow Computex, it was a busy week in tech space. and I'm not sure why. Is it because
Everybody
everybody
just
wants to get everything
decided to have their event on Computex week.
No, so Computex is usually crosses over the May-June.
Yeah.
Excuse me. IMEC for the last 3 years has actually coincided with Computex because they keep trying to guess which day Computex is and then trying to do it a different day but getting it wrong or something like that. But yeah, no, Microsoft Build, Dell Tech World, were they all just trying to get it in before some budget run out or something? The week before June 1st?
I don't know.
We often see that like in November, December timeframe, right?
Yes.
First week of December is usually very busy.
Yeah.
Last week of straight after Thanksgiving, trying to fit stuff in between Thanksgiving, US Thanksgiving, and Christmas is usually crazy. So it meant that regardless of you could have been at any of those events and been really busy. Microsoft announced new Surfaces. Google
I
went
completely missed that.
Yeah.
So
Google started talking about the new CPU.
Yeah,
that
well,
sort of thing.
speaking of an announcement that I was expecting that happened at Dell Tech World, but also could have happened at the Qualcomm keynote at Computex, was the announcement of a new Dell Pro Max laptop with 2 of Qualcomm's AI 100 NPUs in there.
What?
Did you miss that?
Yes.
I'll let me pull it up real quick because this
Dump a link. So I think I'll cover this now since that we're covering Computex. So as always, people have keynotes and stuff at Computex. Nvidia had an official keynote that wasn't. I mean, they've just had GTC, which is the graphics technology conference or whatever they call it now, where they did all their big announcements. So they weren't going to do anything massive. Nvidia didn't announce anything massive in their keynote, aside from we had 60 series, 5060 drivers and launch went out. We can get into that in a bit. But they also announced a new headquarters in Taiwan. And Jensen was reamed saying, does this, because the fact that you're doing a new building in Taiwan mean that you're fully committed and it's your approval of the stability in the region? And he turned around and said, no, I just need more chairs. As in, we're hiring, we need a bigger building. And yeah, the announcement of NVLink Fusion, the new IP that they're trying to open up their scale-up fabric, right?
Yeah.
It's the NVLink thing isn't new. It's the fact that they're calling it NVLink Fusion and it's an IP driven thing. It was a little bit confusing, but they're what they're doing is they're licensing NVLink chip to chip. So you can either put that on your CPU to be paired with Blackwell, or you can put it on your accelerator to be paired with Grace, or you can connect your accelerator to a chiplets they will sell you via chip-to-chip link, which will then have the NVLink backbone version, but the backbone version isn't being licensed. You have to buy it in the form of a chiplet. There's a great diagram on Serve the Home drawn by my old boss Ryan Smith on there explaining it. He did a good job of just showing how that's divvied up. Lots of I did a small video about it with Dylan. Lots of people saying, is this opening up the market and what have you. Yeah, and as Elad says, it opens up, but Nvidia still has a good amount of control in these relationships, and especially the MediaTek one. DGX Spark, something that we've spoken about for a while. Here on the channel, announced back at CES as Digits. Even though they're not formally announcing it as delayed, it kind of is. As in, the first shipments are coming out in a few weeks. We're expecting it to ramp through Q3. And chances are, if you want one, you should be able to get one by Q4. But there's a number of reasons for that delay that I'm still trying to track down. I think I've got a good idea on it. I think I've discussed this with you, George, privately.
Yep.
It's we just before we do any big announcement there, I just want to dot T's and cross I's.
Yep.
You know.
So sort of going back a little bit, back to that Qualcomm. I dropped the link in the private chat.
I'll see if I can bring it up.
Yeah, it's
let's see, share screen. Let's remove the video. There we go.
Yeah, so this announcement was made at Dell Tech World of a Dell Pro Max Plus. That naming scheme, Dell. Laptop will have two.
Apparently, the naming scheme has gone down really well in the B2B market.
Of course, it has.
Yeah.
Anyway,
right.
So at Dell Tech World, Dell announced that they're going to be having a laptop with two Qualcomm AI 100 processors. I don't think they're called Cloud in these. I think it's just AI 100.
The image says Cloud.
Oh, okay. Then Cloud AI 100. But
I mean, it could be the Cloud AI 100 chip. They may be branding it differently.
Yeah. So these are effectively a bigger version of the Hexagon NPU that you find in smartphones.
Well, the Qualcomm's had this chip for about 5 years now.
Yes. These are fairly old chips, as shown by the LPDDR4X 4266 bus that they each have. 256 bit. But it's also an older design.
Yep. So it's less power efficient.
Yeah, which means that it's off the top of my head, that's 136 gigabytes per second of bandwidth per AI 100, up to 75 watts per. So that's a total of 150 watts for the two NPUs, not including the CPU. I find it really interesting that this is being put into a laptop form factor.
Dell does these things when they have a client who has a very specific need. Then they go, does this sell in the open market? Let's have a go. And the thing is, skewing is a thing, obviously. And my big gripe right now is I can't find the ROG Flow Z13, the Strix Halo laptop from Asus, in anything more than the 32 gigabyte model in the UK. And that's because the UK distributor thinks that only the 32 gigabyte model will sell here. So they won't even offer the 128. It's that sort of thing. So we may find out that this ends up as being like a very LATAM specific SKU or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But this is paired with what CPU?
They don't say, but I think it's an x86 CPU of some kind.
Yeah. And it also has some form of GPU, I assume, integrated.
Yeah, I assume it's an iGPU of some kind.
Yeah. So yeah, you're looking at a laptop that could be Strix based, or what's the latest Intel one?
Arrow Lake.
It could be an Arrow Lake based, or it could be a Strix based. Using the integrated graphics on that, and then having two NPUs. And I think it's interesting here. So with the 64 gigabytes of accelerator memory, so that's potato-based memory, just to make sure, Dell said they have tested running several models, including Llama 4 Scout, which is a 109 billion parameter hour model, presumably.
So they're quantizing to int 4.
So Qualcomm's been actually one of the forefront in terms of 4-bit quantization.
Yeah,
but that's because of ridiculously small memory on smartphones, right? So they've kind of done it regardless of accuracy, just to say they can do it. Obviously, things change in agentic workflow, but the whole point here is that you pair it with Dell's Pro AI Studio software,
Yeah.
Let me drop this link into the comments just so people can have a look.
Yeah. So Jay sends in $5. Thanks, Jay. Why does it seem like NPUs never amount to anything useful / practical, at least for applications I know about? The easy and simple answer is software support is not the best for that.
Well, I mean, it's how often are you actually using the GPU? On the desktop, you may be actually in a 2D rendering mode on your CPU, right? For a lot of the time, and your GPU kicks in when the software has been activated for it. Same thing happens on the NPU, and just like a smartphone started with 20 apps. So now you got 20 million. So
what I will say is interesting about, at least for AMD in this particular regard, the NPU drivers are now actually being baked into the Radeon. So if you install Adrenaline drivers, you also get the NPU drivers. It's now a single package, which is interesting.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's I mean, so the thing is, like, the NPU in my laptop works with a bit of my video editing software for like humanoid cutout stuff. Thing is, all that does is, all I notice is that it scrubs fine, whereas it's probably scrubbed fine before but consume more power. So do I notice that the NPU is working? No. It's one of those things that it's a very technical thing that a lot of people like Jay and us and people in the audience are going to say, well, when do I know it's working? And the point is, you shouldn't. Just like you don't know specifically when the GPU is working. You shouldn't really know. I have put it to them that you should have a little bar in the bottom that just goes up and down when the NPU is being used, because it will,
or just goes NPU, just flashes.
No, well, no, I mean just a little small bar that goes up and down as the NPU is being used, because it might just satiate people like you, me, and Jay to understand when the NPU is being. The thing is, the NPU is also meant to be used for things like look-away technology or battery-saving technology. It's that sort of thing. So, and good to see Yuning in the chat. He is the CEO of Deep Computing, who make the RISC-V laptop, the DC Roma 2.
I think we
you should have met him.
I talked to him for like a brief moment at Computex.
Is he not the maddest person in the world?
Yes. Also, yeah.
And but that's why we love him for it.
Yes. So Radx Griffin, it is in Task Manager, but how often are you actively checking Task Manager?
Me, because I'm checking to see if I've got fast enough internet, or wondering why my system's blue screening. That's usually why. But yeah, it's the NPU is used for two things: active AI and passive AI. And over time, we're seeing the passive uses go up. But the thing is, something like power optimization might only run on the NPU for like a few microseconds every second. So it's that sort of thing that I think will be more important as we go forward.
Yeah.
There's also Windows 12, right, which is meant to be AI native, whatever that means.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is interesting. I
wish this was at Computex.
For as much as I work with Qualcomm,
so
I don't know if they'll give me one or let me play with one.
Qualcomm has not been answering my emails, so
yeah, not much I can say to that. So
yeah.
So Computex, like I say, Nvidia had a keynote that was official technically, and they had a press Q&A. If you want to go see a transcription, Tom's Hardware has it right now. Then AMD had a press event, but that wasn't official. ARM had one that was official. Qualcomm had one that was official. MediaTek had one that was official. I still haven't watched the MediaTek one.
The MediaTek one just had me on the floor laughing the entire time.
So it's Did they announce anything?
No, that was Rick Sai was just on stage for 90 minutes, and it was some of the funniest things that you could have imagined. It was
Did he mention sausage? Jensen has mentioned sausage.
yes, he did mention enjoying some of Jensen's special sausage at GTC. Yes, it was
that sounds like a culture translation issue.
I don't think it was. I do not think it was.
The MediaTek one should be public now.
It is. You can watch it. I rewatched it and was having a bit of a laugh before we went live.
Yeah.
Another great quote from Rick Sai was quote, a big
expletive.
Yes. Sucker, but change the S for the sixth letter of the alphabet.
Q. Oh.
F.
No.
Oh.
It's I have this thing that the alphabet ordering is arbitrary. So yeah. No, Dom, I've already got it. It's already in our back end. I just need to watch it. It's on my to-do list, along with editing videos of tech YouTubers doing improv. Yeah, it's I think my one big highlight I'm going to save until later for the tech boxes.
Mm-hmm.
That PCIe card we saw, Dom, let's stick that to the top of the list because I want to talk about it, because they've emailed me since. So I'll get to that in a second. Let's go through the sort of stuff that's been happening the last couple of weeks. Like I said, I this week I was in Amsterdam for the TSMC EU Tech Summit. I got mentioned in the keynote at TSMC event.
Yeah, I saw that.
That they literally said last year that the guy on stage, Kevin, said, "Oh, last year I had an interview with Ian. I see Ian in the audience, and he asked me about Moore's law, and about how some people say it's still alive, other people say it's dead. He asked me, what do I think? And I said, I don't care. There's still you can go watch that interview. I think it's interview number 36 on my channel. But yeah, no, that was interesting event. I got to see packages that were 120 mil by 180 mil.
Ooh,
with 16 HBMs.
Nice.
Right. So packaging technology, the way you package chips. I'll bring out Old Faithful.
Yes.
So this is like a 80 by 80 or 90 by 90 square mil package.
Actually, what's funny is that comment from Rick Sai about the big was actually about the package. It was actually about that chip being 90 by 90 and that being at the time a big chip.
Yeah. Well, so this was made by MediaTek's ASIC business.
Yep. Using
TSMC's largest packaging substrate packaging technology, and 10,000 pins or whatever. Which reminds me, I've still got an image that I want to do as an exclusive that I've held on to for 8 months. Apparently, we have some images. Let's see if I can bring them up here. But yeah, no, the TSMC event. They didn't say much new because it was the EU event. But let's see here. Do I have something? No. The EU. Yeah, the EU event was a bit more focused towards automotive and industrial, because that's the market. Yeah. And they also announced a new collaboration fab called ESMC. So TSMC, Bosch, Infineon, NXP, that's broken ground now. So they're going to do quote unquote leading edge 16 nanometer for automotive. That's leading edge, right?
Yep.
And they also showed roadmaps of ROCm and MRAM down to 6 nanometer at the end of the decade. All the sort of stuff that those sorts of companies need. But yesterday, and this is the first topic I want to go into here. We had Nvidia's financials. So every quarter, companies announce how much money they've made. And in this case, Nvidia made a lot of money, as we can see here. Initially, I had this picture of Jensen diving into a money bin. I thought that was a bit on the nose. I
thought it was very appropriate.
However, now he's just jumping into some cards. The headline. So there's probably 3 or 4 main takeaways here. I won't go into the nitty gritty. I can share this URL in case people want to go have a read.
Up 69% year over year. Nice.
Yeah. So revenue here. Hopefully you can see my mouse if I click on this. Yeah. So revenue for just for context, it says 2026 Q1. That's because Nvidia's financials are off by 3 quarters. They've just entered their 2026 financial year. Yeah, it's annoying, and it's not what anybody else does, but Nvidia's going to Nvidia. Yeah, they made 44 billion in the quarter, which is their highest quarter ever. Up, as George says, 69% year over year. Every department went up. Data center revenue went up. This is this blue bar here. If you just want data center money, it's a hockey stick, right? It's what your company dreams of. Gaming revenue is the highest revenue Nvidia has ever had for gaming in a quarter, because we had the 5000 series launch. However, that was overshadowed because Nvidia now makes more money from networking, from Ethernet, from InfiniBand, and possibly NVLink. But if you thought gaming was not important at Nvidia, it's now less important than networking.
Yeah.
In terms of revenue, just clarifying. And
well, I mean, you say in terms of revenue, but one, that's legally all Nvidia has to do is return money to shareholders. That's all they're legally obligated to do. And two,
also, and tell the truth.
Yeah. Also, well, look at the launch of 50 series.
Hey, launch of 50 series was great. They've never made this much money from gaming before. It's just not as much as networking.
Well, no, I'm more thinking like the launch has been, in terms of like the drivers and the overall.
Oh, the performance numbers at the high end have been great. The messaging in the mid range has been awful.
Oh God.
It's
okay.
we can get to that later in the video. I just want to
because I'm about this close from ranting again.
Yeah, and we need you to calm down lest we be permanently demonetized. The one thing I want to highlight here, though, if I can go up, is so the one in light blue here is projected for next quarter. The one before it is this quarter, and this number here is their gross margin, the line at the top that's wavy. And you noticed it goes down from 73% 2 quarters ago to 61% this quarter. And this is because Nvidia is being hit hard by the restrictions into China. And this is also part of another story we'll get into later. But Nvidia, when the US started putting the first restrictions on how high performance you can sell into China, Nvidia went, okay, our top chip doesn't meet the requirements. Maybe we can cut it down. That was Hopper, H100. So they cut it down. Then the limits changed again, so they cut it down again. And that chip is called H20. They sold $4.5 billion worth of H20s to China this quarter. This quarter just gone. That's more than all the gaming chips put together, for what it's worth. However, because of the ban, they didn't sell 2.5 billion, or they couldn't ship 2.5 billion that were essentially ordered. So they lost out in $2.5 billion of revenue. Otherwise, this number would say 46.5. Also, there's $8 billion worth of sales next quarter that are now zero because of the new rules. So that's why margins are down this quarter, because they had to write a bunch of stock off. Next quarter, the margins go back up because it's not actually built. It's already been factored in. But that revenue of 45 for next quarter, the outlook should be 53 if they were able to sell to China. And Jensen's big thing, not only at GTC, not only at Computex, and not only on the financial call last night, is that some of these rules aren't right. And the premise being that the rules are based on the fact that the only place to get AI is the US. And we've seen time and time again, if you put China into a box, they innovate their way out of it. And Jensen said, look, maybe their chips aren't as powerful as ours, but land is cheap, power is cheap. If you only need one of our chips, but for them you have to use 2 or 4, they're going to use 2 or 4 or 8. They will outscale you.
Well, you can see it in the, I think it's called Cloud Matrix.
The Huawei thing, yeah.
384, yeah, the Huawei thing.
Yeah. It's they're prepared to put 10 times more megawatts into a data center than anyone in the US. The thing is, Jensen's argument is, if we didn't restrict them, they would buy us, and therefore they would buy American. They would build on American. They're going to build anyway. They have 50% of the world's AI engineers. So by restricting them, you force them to develop a homegrown solution, and then they can become less reliant on US infrastructure. And that's why they're not making as much money this quarter. I refer you to this image if you replace the GPUs with
not as much money.
Yeah, these are all the H20s they couldn't sell.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, at least at the moment, here's the thing. Nvidia's going to be able to sell those H20s regardless.
So they've said that they won't.
Really?
They're being mothballed, essentially.
That's an interesting indicator.
Some of the stuff that's still in the pipe may be able to be reused. The stuff that's already assembled won't be, it sounds like.
Really?
Jensen was also asked, well, hang on, with the new rules, can you not just degrade it further? And he said, we can't.
No, there's realistically no way that you could. But
or if they could, it just wouldn't be worth using.
Yeah.
Even against Huawei chips, right?
So not being okay. I find it interesting that they wouldn't be able to sell H20.
I mean, that was my argument. I mean, okay, you reduce the cost by half, but somebody will buy them.
Academia would buy them.
Academia couldn't afford them.
But my point, well, would you rather throw them away or give them to academia?
I bet you if you gave them away, it's a tax break.
Sure.
To non-profits. Hey, there's a non-profit we know that could do with some H20s.
I mean, I would say no, but like, the thing is that you could absolutely.
Yes,
like,
you could.
Yeah, it's a cut down chip, but it's not unusable.
It's
and I, as Elad says in the chat, Neoverse providers will buy them.
Well, so part of the problem is that it's super cut down on memory, super cut down on networking.
Sure.
And so actually from a token, if you're using it for AI, from a token per watt perspective, it's actually pretty bad efficiently from an efficiency standpoint. However, if you have the space and the volume, there might be some use for them. I mean, it's going to be better than Ampere. And how many HPC installations use Ampere?
A lot.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's my point. Is that academia / HPC could use them?
Yeah.
Like, that's why them saying, "Oh, we can't sell it," seems.
It's, to be honest, I also think that they're waiting for a little bit of a reprieve.
Maybe
That
they
they
may be
might be
just
able to
hoarding
sell them
stock
again.
and hoping that some of these get cooled down.
So the US did just lift the diffusion rules, which is a different set of rules about exporting elsewhere around the world. As in, you have the
Yeah.
China-specific rules, and then you have the export rules. The export rules don't. So the diffusion export rules don't limit what chips. They just limit how much compute a specific region can buy over a 5-year period. And it's done in percentage points and whatever. And the US administration has lifted those rules now because are they UAE based? Are now investing something like 30 billion between Qualcomm, AMD, and Nvidia.
That's Humane, which is Saudi backed.
Yeah. Okay. It's so Saudi based, but also the UAE also have their own sovereign announcement.
Probably.
Recently. It's
Like,
it's that
the
sort
Gulf
of thing.
Countries.
Yeah, but Jensen's argument is, hey, they buy American. We have to return the taxes to the American taxpayer, and we're happy to do that. Just let us sell to them.
Yeah, no, I get the argument from a taxpayer perspective. Like,
yeah, but it's still not talking about gaming.
Well,
because
oh my
this
god!
makes more money.
So during the keynote, he had like 5 minutes of, "Oh, we were able to put this GPU into this laptop." Yeah, stuff you've been doing for a decade. Whoop-de-doo.
He said, only 10% of our keynotes are specifically about GeForce these days, but don't worry, we still love GeForce. And then that's it.
Which is like, it was the intro 5 minutes of, "Oh, look at this ray tracing. Oh, look at, we were able to shrink this into a laptop." Yes, this is all stuff we've either seen or have been doing for half a decade plus. Like,
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. They're going to do what they're going to do.
Nvidia's
Right.
getting Nvidia.
Any company's going to do what every company does.
Sure, but Nvidia's getting Nvidia. It rolls off the tongue.
Huh. So, I mean, broadly speaking, that was Nvidia's financials. Let's see if I've covered everything I want here, or let's some discussion questions. How long is Nvidia going to print money for?
I don't know. I will say the H20 comment is making me go, are they? Because that feels weird.
So I've seen reports from the analysts who track this sort of thing, and they're making last year they made what 100 billion on compute, AI compute. That analyst firm, a big one, is predicting that they'll make 400 billion a year in compute by the end of the decade. So 2030, they will be making $400 billion a year. Now,
I find that very doubtful.
You think it'll be more or less?
I think it'll be less.
So the thing is, right now, to a certain extent, Jensen's right on this. AI has changed in the last 8 months.
Yes.
Some people it's quick, some people it's been slow. But instead of just having one model do a one-shot start to end, we're now talking about multiple models in a chain. We call it a chain of thought. Mixture of experts is something very similar, but not exactly. But imagine if you had 10 models being in your chain of thought. Sometimes they might branch to other models as well. You don't know if your question, your 50 token question, is going to need 1,000 intermediate tokens, 10,000 intermediate tokens, even though what you get at the end might still be 200 tokens, the
Yeah.
answer that you want, because of how the reasoning is done, because of how the chain is done.
Here's also what I would say. Yes, AI has changed a lot in the last 8 months. Who's to say that transformers will still be in vogue tomorrow? Who knows that if the current way that we do AI will still be the way that we do AI 6 months from now? Maybe we cut compute costs by 1,000. Who knows? That's AI is such a fast changing ecosystem, and it's like I would not like to predict what they're going to be doing, because I don't think we know how AI is going to change.
It's let's see if I can bring up this image. It's an image I like very much. Let's share this tab. Okay. So let's share this one. Okay. So top left here is what a single shot model looks like. Input, output.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have chain of thought. This example here has, sort of essentially 3, 4 models. Each arrow is a model essentially. And then you have your intermediate language models with thoughts in a chain. Then the next step is having, multiple chains, and then find which chain gives you the best result, because you find a way to score the output, and then you only use the one that's at the end. The thing is, in the middle of all this, you're making tokens, you're using tokens, you're using compute, you're using different models, you're having to store models in memory. If each one of these was a 70 billion parameter model, you now need 12 GPUs just for this, right? That sort of thing. Then we get into tree of thoughts, where
which looks like how a branch predictor works, kind of.
But what you've got here is you find one chain that works, and you might be doing some backtracking to give feedback, and then it goes back in again. And then you've got this thing at the end here, which is called a graph of thoughts, right? And I'll just take the chat away so you can see it. This is where you have, it's like a tree of thoughts, but you have your tree, your ends of your trees coming together at the end when it's not a negative. And you end up with a scored output result. Jensen's whole point here is this, you don't know how many intermediate tokens you're going to use versus a single shot. It could be 100x, it could be 1,000x, it could be more. As a result, you need 1,000x more compute to deliver it. And that's going to consume obviously 1,000x more power. And that's what George said. In order to get there, we do need to find better ways to compute these things. That might be model architecture. That may be different number representations. It may be thermonuclear war, and we end up fighting over cheese. And I don't mean George, I mean literal cheese.
Yeah. But looking at the tree of thoughts, like, to me, it feels like we could reuse some of the old knowledge we've had for years. Honestly, it's almost funny watching a lot of the AI people talk, because it's like they're learning the very same lessons we learned in HPC 30 to 40 years ago.
It's cyclical, right?
Yes, it's we're relearning the exact same
the best way of organizing data, or a dictionary of data, turns out libraries had solved it years ago.
Yeah. It's
you don't need to be
is new again.
You don't need to be a biologist reinventing integration in 1990 to be successful here.
The mathematicians did it in decades before. Like, it's that's why I hesitate to use the word laugh, but oh yes, Thai's for a piece. Yes, very funny.
I've mentioned this on the Poutine a few times before. A biologist in '94 decided that by printing out a graph, cutting it up, and either weighing it or counting the squares, you could find the area under the graph, and this value may have some special properties. Not realizing that integration
It's the integral, the area under the curve.
And she blindly says that this is very different to integration because she cuts up paper. The seminal paper, last time I checked, it had 150 citation, as 150 papers had cited it.
That's
So
that's actually like impressive.
I think over time the amount of people citing it for parody use
has increased.
Okay, no. There's 3 reasons to cite it. 1, you don't know any better. 2, you're citing it as an example of poor knowledge transfer within the sciences.
Mhm.
Or 3, you're integrating and you decide to add a reference regarding the process of integration.
Or you do it yourself as a funny.
Well, no. You just say, well, the integral of this is that, and then you just put a little citation, and it's like paper number 16. Oh, ties this paper about diabetes care, because I'm pretty sure most of the papers that cite it now are for that reason. But yeah, it's a fun thing you find out during research that stuff like this exists. Now, where were we? Oh yeah.
Okay, so
tokens
Zachary
in
in
graph
chat
report.
is technically correct. Is that it's technically a sum, not integration. It's technically a discrete number of cuts. Yes, but it's funny regardless.
Half base times height.
That's
Yeah.
triangle.
No, you know what I mean. Yeah. So.
Anyway.
This even has a Wikipedia page. I didn't realize it did now. It has also been discussed as a failure of peer review.
Oh, it's been cited over 500 times as of March 2025.
It is likely that most of these citations are made in jest by researchers using the
yeah,
as in we use the trapezium rule, cite tie.
It's quite funny.
Tai continued, she derived the method independently during a session with her statistical advisor in 1981, noting that she had a witness to the model's originality. Her colleagues had been using her model, calling it Tai's formula, likely in jest.
That's funny.
This is something I will remember until the end of time.
Yeah,
when I've got Alzheimer's, I will be referring to Tai's model.
This is academic infamy right here. This is Anyway, moving along to a new topic. Because we've sort of been burning time on this. Intel announced some new.
Let's do our mid roll first.
Okay.
As per a document, just so we get it.
Yep.
Off the line. We're going to take a minute here to talk about our sponsors and the ways that you can support us. We don't have a sponsor this, so George and I are sponsoring this show, which means you should all go subscribe to my stuff, to George's stuff, and also our Substacks. George, where's your Substack?
It's at chipsandcheese.com.
Mine is more-more.com with 2 O's in the second more. Another way you can support us with super chats, and that's obviously great. And if they're good, we'll read them on channel. Take Potato does have a store, and I brought it up in a few previous routines. I can't remember if we've brought up the new merchandise we have on the store. And for this, I want to bring in our good friend Dom, who's managing in the back room, because he has one of the newest things. And let's see, Dom, if you can. Oh, I'm going to add you. And can you show us what you have?
I can. I have.
I love this.
This keynote could have been an email.
Yes.
This beautiful 1980s, early 90s inspired T-shirt. This keynote could have been an email. It is incredibly comfortable, nice and soft, with a lovely transfer on the front, and yeah, I'm glad to have one of the first ones.
Yeah, Dom does work for me, so he's legally obliged to say that.
I am actually chained. You can't see the chains at my feet, but yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dom. I'm gonna share this because the store has gone through a little bit of a redesign.
Yes, this one.
I'll double link.
That one my size.
So newest items, we've got this could have been an email. I've got it in two versions. I've got it on the front, like Dom had, or I've got it a version on the back because I can't wear it with meetings with my clients. Could you imagine?
You know, there are some people that would totally do it.
Right. So a few people in the audience may get this, but one of our good friends here, who doesn't watch any of our content, by the way, is Charlie from Semi Accurate.
He would absolutely wear that.
At Hot Chips, I'm giving him one of these T-shirts.
Amazing. Wait, will he actually be at Hot Chips?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Actually, yeah, he should be.
Okay.
Or if not, I'll give it to him. There's something happening at the end of September.
Yeah.
I'll give it to him. The other new T-shirt is this one. It's called Yield at What Die Size.
And I know Pat Gelsinger commented, where can I buy this?
That was a parody account.
Oh, was it? Okay.
That was Pet Gelsinger. Yes,
so
I think
I could absolutely see him buying one of these.
So we are fed up with companies announcing yield with no die size because die size and yield are inextricably linked. I can't say that word. They are linked.
Those companies and more just media / leakers saying, "Oh, yield 50% yield at what die size?" Come on.
Yeah. Funnily enough, at the TSMC event I was at a few days ago, they mentioned again. They said a 256 megabit SRAM cell with yields over 95%. Technically a D0 of 1.2, which ain't that great, but whatevs. It turns out SRAM you can you put in redundancy, so things happen. But yeah, so this is a brand new. We're working on some new designs as well. We've still got some of the the 10 torrent black hole and some of the older stuff that's been on the store for quite a while. Jeff here with his mug. I will say, I showed this before, but the Black Hole Potato 2 mug, if you buy it in the largest 20-ounce size, I think it fits a pint, as in a British pint. The American pint is smaller, but yeah. If you want to support the channel,
16 ounces.
If you want to support the channel, this is a great way to do that. And rather than throwing your money at the screen, just get something instead. It pays for me to feed George at events, so it's all good.
Very true.
But if you are somebody from a company who wishes to sponsor this part of the podcast, please do get in touch. And with that, let's go on to George's topic of the day, because mine was the financials and a bit of
I guess I'll cover it since Intel didn't have a keynote, but they did announce something, or two things really. Intel announced their Arc Pro cards for their Battle Mage series of architectures. Now we do have a video on this. They also showed off Panther Lake, but that will be shown more at the end of the year, I believe, when those actually become available. But for Computex, the big news was the Arc Pro B50 and B60 GPUs. These are Intel's second generation of workstation card. Yes, there were first generation, I believe I think it's the A60 and A50. I think they were the same names, or maybe A40.
Yeah.
Um,
They kind of went under the radar, but
Yeah.
that was almost by design.
yeah, very under the radar. So starting with the B50, it is the lower end card. 70 watts total board power. So they're just PCIe slot power, perfectly fine for this card. 170 into 8 tops. That's your peak tops. 16 gigs of memory, 224 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth. So this is a 128-bit bus at 14 gigabit per second. This card is really designed for VDI. What's
VDI?
Video, basically remote video.
Video display infrastructure.
Yes, thank you. But it's basically if you need to run a whole bunch of Windows VMs for a whole bunch of people, you can just
virtual desktop infrastructure. There you go.
Virtual desktops.
Yeah. It comes in two form factors. You either get the small card with a blower, or a passive one, single slot one like this from ASRock. I'm not sure if you saw this one.
No, I didn't. I missed.
Yeah, no. I'm a big sucker for single slot 75 watt cards.
MSRP for the blower is $299. Honestly, quite a decent little card for VDI work. The bandwidth is a bit meh, but it is what it is. Moving on to B60, that's between 120 and 200 watts, 197 tops of into 8, 24 gigs of VRAM at 456 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth. Both of these cards have PCIe 5.0 X8 as their connection to their motherboard. However, you will not be able to buy the B60 as an individual product. This is something that I found disappointing. There is no MSRP for the B60 because Intel at this point in time does not plan on selling B60s to the public as a
retail product. You may be able to go to retailers and buy them as an OEM product.
Yes.
Which typically comes with a very restricted warranty, no proper marketing design, but you still get the card.
Yes. I just had my lunch delivered.
Sickening.
So
it's so Jay does say, they need to just put a SKU on it. That's not to say at some point it won't be.
Yeah.
I've got a feeling that enough people can grab it first, they will. The problem here is that Intel isn't doing a reference card design. They're leaving it to partners, to AIB partners, to then work with boutique system builders and regular system builders to go build something like this, which I've got on display, which is the Battle Matrix. It's a 4-way. It's paired, usually in this case, paired with a Xeon.
The estimated value of the B60 is about $500 US, but that is not the MSRP. That is the estimated value of the card should Intel decide to sell it as a product.
Yep.
Now, I suspect the reason why they are not doing this is because of software reasons. The software is not at a point where they want to validate it for pro use, which is fair enough.
They showcased a roadmap. I don't have it immediately to hand here, but the idea is that all the standard VDI infrastructure, but then also the AI infrastructure for these cards, some of it's available now, some of it will be available next quarter, some of it will be available end of the year. This is the very early stages of this product line for Intel after getting to where they are with all the gaming stuff.
And I will give them Battle Matrix is one heck of a name. I do love the name.
I initially misread it as something related to Dominatrix, so
I had one of those at my hotel in Taipei.
What you do on your own time is up to you.
No, I was seriously I was walking to my room from the elevator, and it was just that was an interesting experience at 1 o'clock in the morning.
It's right for me. It's Battle Axe and Dominatrix put together. and Battle Axe, for those who aren't culturally aware, is a name for a very strong, usually a semi-derogatory name for a strong-willed woman. So if you pair them both together, you have a Battle Matrix. and it sounds like this is if George is not buying pens, that may be his entertainment.
No. Anyway, so moving on to because dang it, Ian. Anyway, moving on to the other unique news about the B60 is that Intel, like you said, has basically left the B60 to OEMs to design. And one of the OEMs, Maxsun, has designed a dual B60 GPU.
I have images. I'll throw them up as and when I'm getting to them. But yeah, no, keep going.
Now, the dual B60 GPU doesn't have a PCIe switch on board. Instead, what it relies on is PCIe bifurcation. Because both of these GPUs are only X8, what that means is if the board and CPU support bifurcation, then you can get both GPUs to run. Basically, the first half of the slot is for the first GPU, and the second half of the slot is for the back half of this is for the back GPU.
So I wanted to show one picture of having both dies, but I don't think we took one. We have pictures of single dies, but we could have got that from the single card. You can see in this. You can see in this image
the top quarter.
Yeah. Oh, it's maybe the video. Oh yeah. Let's see. Let's see if this. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And that small video is 150 meg. 150 meg, which is on my. But yeah, it's we've got. So that's what it looks like from the back, anyway. Sorry, go on, George.
So I was going to say, there is no direct communication like NVLink or anything like that. You're essentially relying on PCIe P2P for communications on across that.
So the way I would explain it is that normally one of these chips is a by 8 anyway.
Mhm.
right? So you can put two on a by 16 link. The thing is, you have two devices on a by 16 link,
Yes.
right? Normally, you think of the interaction as host to device, CPU to accelerator.
Mhm.
Now, the CPU has what's called a PCIe root complex, which is often 16 lanes long. Now, in the past, we used to have motherboards that would be a top slot that would be wired X16, a middle slot that would be wired X8, and then another slot that would be wired X4.
Mhm.
What you have is the CPU was able to split the root complex into by 8 by 8 in separate slots, and you had a mux to deal with that. The by 4 came from the chipset. I just included there for completeness.
Mhm.
Modern consumer motherboards, if you buy the latest generation Arrow Lake, especially, instead of having a by 8 or a by 16 by 8, which is, electrically would be by 8 by 8 if you populated it, they've just gone back to one full by 16. The thing is, if you have that situation, which is like what this is here, but you have multiple devices on that by 16 link, you're relying on the CPU to be able to do the muxing.
Mhm.
And usually we see this listed in documentation of, well, this CPU supports by 8 by 8 bifurcation or muxing. And if you go to the EPIC CPUs, it will say, well, we support muxing down to the 1 by 1 by 1 by 1 by 1 by 1 by 1 level. So unfortunately, because modern CPUs might not do the bifurcation properly of by 8 by 8, this might not work in them. However, this is a Pro GPU, so you should be pairing it with a Xeon or a Threadripper, which will support it.
So
Or the CPU might support it, but they may not have a mux on the motherboard to support it.
so Ryzen 5 should support this. Most motherboards should be able to most CPUs should be able to support this.
Yeah.
Arrow Lake should be able to support this. It should work in a client motherboard, but this is not designed for a client board. This is designed for use with a Xeon CPU. And when I say Xeon CPU, I mean a fully fledged,
a proper workstation.
yeah.
Right, and this is why this slide here says up to 8 Arc Pro GPUs, because each one of these PCIe cards has 2 GPUs on them, which makes it sound like Maxsun won't be the only dual GPU provider.
Well, so we know that Sparkle's making one, but I actually, in the demo room, we saw up to 8 individual cards in a chassis. So that's not just 4 dual GPUs; it's also 8 single GPUs.
Yeah.
Yep.
Liquid cooled?
No, air.
Oh, so they will do single slot air ones. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, just have enough airflow, and you're good.
Yeah. That easy thing that isn't really loud at all.
I mean, honestly, I mean for 200 watts, it's not that insane.
But they did say
the server chassis,
the dual GPU version of Battle Matrix, or the 8-way Battle Matrix, they said probably will be a low 5-figure.
Yeah.
So
they said probably between 8 to 10 grand, or 8 to 15.
The thing is, you can get Xeons in this form factor that are what, 8 cores.
I think with the newest generation, I think you have to go up to 12.
I'm thinking Xeon Bronze.
So.
Oh, they don't do Bronze anymore, do they?
No, it's Xeon 6.
Silver.
60 at minimum it's the 6500 series, because the 6300 series is essentially Raptor Lake refresh.
The thing is, you could put this in an X99 system and be fine.
Yes.
Probably.
If it supports that bifurcation, I think it should.
Yeah,
but,
it's all
mileage may vary.
X99 and X299 lives on. But yeah, so it's, to be honest, at the start of the show, this is what I was most excited for.
Yeah, I will admit I am a little bit sad that they aren't selling it independently, but it is what it is.
To be honest, I've got a feeling one of the board partners would just say screw it.
Oh, probably.
and it will probably be somebody like ASRock.
Yeah, or one of the
You know-
Chinese vendors such as Sparkle,
Yeah.
or even Maxsun themselves.
So we've got some discussion questions here. Do we see this succeeding? I think yes.
Yeah,
It's going to be more software stack dependent. What this really does set up, I think, is a launch platform for a Celestial version.
yeah, absolutely.
Or, Celestial or Druid further down the line, depending on how they get sliced and diced. But so is PCIe 5x8 the way we go to get dual GPUs back?
No,
It's the thing is, if the gaming market was more less price sensitive and more amenable to advanced packaging, we
Yeah.
could get amazing GPUs with chiplets.
yep,
Imagine if you had a Rubin Ultra version of a gaming chip. I mean, yes, you'd need a small nuclear station in your back garden to run it. But yeah, it's the because advanced packaging is so expensive, and I bet you if they came out with a gaming GPU that was $5,000, that was gaming, not professional, people would complain. So,
Yeah.
oh, this is even if it offered double the FPS in
Yep.
Wukong or whatever. So, do you want to cover the AMD launches at
Up to
Computex as
you.
well?
I can do this real quick.
Yeah, I'll
I'll
find
give
an image.
myself 10 minutes.
I'll find an image to show.
So
Go for it.
AMD had some announcements. If you want to go watch my video on it, I have video. If
Somebody drop a link in the chat.
yeah, it's Dom. It's in the. If you want to drop it in the chat, that'd be great. But AMD announced the AMD Radeon RX 9060 XT 8 and 16 gigabyte versions, along with the Threadripper 9000, R97, 9700, and some ROCm news. The 9060 XT, if AMD's numbers are accurate, always take first-party results with grains of salt, especially because they compare to the 8 gig 5060 Ti, which is known to be slower than the 16 gig because, yeah, sometimes you do run out of VRAM. Then for 350 for the 16 gig version, yeah, I honestly think that that's not a bad card. The 8 gig at 300, I would say shouldn't exist. I don't think there should be an 8 gig card, but nah. It's exactly what you would expect. If you want the actual specs of it, go watch my video. Ian has the specs pulled up here, 32 compute units, up to 3.13 gigahertz. Maybe we'll be able to break 4 gigahertz on a GPU on air. That would be fun.
Agreed. I mean, AMD's graphics architectures have been clocking quite well, haven't they? So.
Yes. It's a budget card, essentially. Some would say it's not so budget at $300 and $350 respectively, but welcome to the market that we live in.
Did you see AMD's? You were there. You were in a briefing room with McAfee.
Yeah.
Did somebody bring up the question of why the hell does the 8 gigabyte version even exist?
Yeah, and the answer was something about choice, which basically it's upsell. It's so that AMD can upsell to the 16 gig.
it's there's an argument here, right? The 60 series cards are usually very well sold. That's a very popular card. You go look at the Steam survey. It's always 60 series, whether it's 1060, 1660, whatever. The argument here is that one region which deals a lot with rented pre-builds, for lack of a better term, is the Asian gaming cafe.
Yeah.
It's kind of the sense of it existing in the West has kind of died, but in the East it's still very popular. I mean, Luke and Sammy, one of his video editors, after we filmed that little thing we showed at the beginning, the improv thing, they were going to go play games at a LAN gaming center, right?
That's
and
great.
the thing is, that's the sort of chip, that's the sort of card that goes in there, the 8 gig card. Because if you look at what games everybody is playing,
League, Fortnite,
Dota, CS,
Dota, yeah.
I mean, they even said there was a CS 1.6 setup,
Yeah.
right, on these systems, or
Yeah.
if you want to play CS:GO 2 or whatever, it's still great stuff for that. However, obviously, anybody at home who wants to do more than that will want more than 8 gigs, and which is why that card exists. AMD did say that, look, these cards are meant to be available somewhat worldwide, but because there's no AMD specific version, it will be up to OEM partners to decide which regions they want to sell their cards in. So some regions may not even get 8 gig cards to offer, or some regions might not get 16 gig cards, if you want to put it the other way around.
Yeah.
To be honest, there's nothing new in that statement. That's
No.
always been the case.
It's yeah.
But it's
The nice thing is that
they're recognizing that there's a B2B market, but which is sold like a B2C market.
yeah,
And that's why we get them on shelves.
what I will say is, at least with the 9060 XT, it has the full PCIe X16 link. So when you do start swapping out to system RAM, you at least have double the bandwidth of an X8 card. So,
I mean, the games I play, I still get 120 FPS on a 1080.
sure,
Right?
but
because Trackmania runs on a potato. It's so what I haven't played a AAA game in a long time. I think the last one was Diablo, and I think I still played that 6 months after launch. I used to be a massive Final Fantasy nerd. I didn't even realize Final Fantasy 16 came out until the day of release, and I still didn't buy it because I knew I wouldn't have time. I don't own a Steam Deck. I don't own any of those sorts of devices. I don't own a Switch. The games I play these days are on my phone, if it's not Trackmania or something similar. So
I play like Slay the Spire.
Yeah,
like basic stuff on my laptop.
Balatro doesn't need a.
Yeah,
it's and so you look at the portion of the market playing newly released AAA games, right? Very few ever hit the top 50 unless it's a massive launch. Right? The only game upcoming that I think is going to hit massive widespread appeal, that's going to be so demanding on your chips that the 8 gig is definitely not going to be enough. GTA 6.
Which I do not care about.
Will we stop getting 8 gig cards before GTA 6 is released?
Will GTA 6 run on a PS5?
Yeah, because they have to make it.
Then it will probably run on an 8 gig card. At probably really poor settings, but it will probably run.
So the funny thing is here, Piprod says old school RuneScape players here. My brother works for Jagex. Oh no, SRS. He is he gets to decide content. So
nice. So moving on to the this name.
It's I'm gonna let me stop sharing, and I want to bring up. Let's I want you to see what this is, and I want you to judge for yourself. I guess I haven't uploaded my video yet. So let me just share an image then. Oh, do we only have like 3 images of the card? That's weird. I took a buttload. I guess this gives the game away, but let's go with this one. What are you looking at?
Is this an SSD PCIe card?
Kinda. This is a PCIe 5 by 32 card that uses a PCIe switch to give you 28 M.2 drives.
It's this thing. Yeah.
So if you fill those up with 8 terabyte drives, you get 224 terabytes at a throughput of a tera transfer per second.
Well, yes, but it's
that's if you do individual peaks summed across the drives. Yes,
yeah.
You are limited by the PCIe 5 by 32.
Yeah,
which I think tops out at half that.
But it tops out at 128 gigabytes per direction. So
okay, so it's a quarter of that.
256. Yeah.
Yeah. But 28 M.2s in a PCIe card.
Is it just me, or can I just go meh?
It's
like, I know how weird that sounds, but
I'm a sucker for being able to install big fast storage, and I just didn't expect to see this, especially from a company I've never heard of called UTRAN. Have you ever heard of UTRAN?
No, but I will say that fan does look awfully quiet, like Crispy says.
Yeah, well, you're going to put it in a consumer system, I guess. But the so it uses a Broadcom switch, as you might expect. It's the one. It's the one.
This thing's going to cost at least $3,000 out the pop.
Oh, I was thinking more like 10 because it's
yeah.
limited.
I mean, I'm being generous by saying 3. It's probably more like 10 to 15.
Like, hang on,
I'm surprised you didn't with the microchip switch.
So, I was asking about this to the person who came up to me. Turns out it was this either the CFO or the CTO. I think it was the CFO. And then somebody came up to me and it's the CEO. And he's like, nice. "Oh yeah, no, I designed all of this." And they actually emailed me a couple of days ago.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so we are very pleased to learn of your interest. The PCIe Gen 5 28-way M.2 solution. We're currently preparing for mass production, and the finalized spec sheet will be available soon. What I was having a discussion the other day about the weird English names that people in the East choose for themselves. The weirdest ones I'd seen to date were Raptor and Cabbage. I've seen plenty of apples.
Yeah.
This one for a tiny Asian woman is Popo.
Okay.
So yeah, it's so it requires an EPS 8-pin. So it's not a standard PCIe connection. So servers. Power consumption, if when fully populated, is 400 watts.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's when fully populated plus all the drives are active. Plus,
Yep.
you've got that switch active.
Yep.
It's the Broadcom Atlas 2 PEX 89144, which is their
Yep.
big boy Gen 5.
Yep. I'm
chip.
surprised that. Okay, I guess that makes sense. No, that. Yeah, no, you'd have to use that for if it's X4.
Yeah. The thing is, they also had. Let's see if I can bring it here.
Oto's, it's MicroStar International.
It's the MSI is still Maxsun International.
Yes, it's
That's
still.
what
They haven't renamed their name.
Yeah. This is a PCIe 6 bridge.
Oh yeah, I saw this.
They were showing. Oh, my cat just got off my computer and now it's running at 90 degrees. It's they were showing PCIe 6 to PCIe 6 connectivity, but also CXL based storage over PCIe 6.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty cool. I don't have a price, but I do have a web page. Hopefully we won't give it the hug of death. But here's the web page in the comments for the card.
Mm.
I will happily take one. But
I wouldn't say no, but
how 8 terabyte M.2 drive today? Cheapest price is what, $700?
I thought they came down.
I know in the UK they're about 550, but that includes our tax. But 28 times 700 is what? 20 grand? Plus 10 for the card.
Yeah.
But hey,
So
super cool.
Back to the finishing up the AMD news real quick.
Oh, sorry, that's what I thought we had finished on.
No, there's still a little bit more there.
Oh,
in the
sorry.
doc. It's fine. I hate this name. The AMD Radeon AI Pro R9700. God, I hate that name. Is for all intents and purposes a 32 gigabyte 9070 XT. With the most interesting thing here being the 12V2X6 power connector actually being the one that's listed on AMD's site as the standard power connector.
Sorry, I'll get it up here. Yep.
Yeah, if you go to requirements, I believe. Yep. External power connectors. 12. That's 12 VH power.
Yeah.
So that's the most interesting thing about this card. Otherwise, it's just a 9070 XT with 32 gigs of RAM. No pricing on it yet. Hopefully they price it at a reasonable. If they sell this at $1,000, this will sell gangbusters because this will be the cheapest way to get 32 gigs of RAM on a card.
And this is RDNA 4, so it's the
Yes.
graphics architecture.
Yep. Now moving on to my favorite topic of AMD's to talk about, ROCm. As you all know, Ian, and some of you in the audience very well know, AMD has now committed to all future Radeon GPUs having day one ROCm support, and all announced and launched RDNA 4 GPUs are on the ROCm supported list, as Ian is showing. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's standard boilerplate. I think technically some of Nvidia's Blackwell cards are still 22.04 for Ubuntu. Like,
Yeah, I
That's not
think
a big-
I think they're just clarifying that they're not supported on Oracle, right?
Yeah,
Or
Azure,
Azure.
or yeah, like
It's consumer cards for consumer Linux OSs,
yeah.
right?
So, yeah, and then that's all the data center
Yeah.
stuff. But
So this is ROCm on Radeon,
mhm.
but the R in ROCm already stands for Radeon.
So it's
So-
the Radeon Open Compute module
on Radeon.
on Radeon GPUs.
So it's ROCm.
Yes.
ROCm. It sounds like a command, not a.
So
But the point here is that they had told us that they were committing to enabling consumer support. We were just waiting for the announcement to say from here on out, all supported. So everything RDNA 4 will now be supported. They also said Strix Halo will be supported.
yeah, so I was going to say, so what's funny is if you look at this patch release, it's 6.4.1. I suspect that this is actually a bug fix for Strix Halo, because stuff that wasn't compiling or what didn't have a GFX 1150 target now has a GFX 1150 target. So that is Strix Halo for you guys who don't know. That's Strix in Strix Halo.
Yeah.
I suspect that's why it's 0.1. Anyway.
We also had ROCm for Windows.
Yes, there was some ROCm for Windows news. Out of the box PyTorch support in I think coming soon. I can't remember if it's H2 or not.
Yeah, it said a preview for PyTorch and Onyx by end of year.
Yeah.
So it's still super high level right now, but there's a commitment to drive the ability to enable ROCm on Windows because there's demand for it.
Yeah, heck, even Nvidia and a lot of they just say run WSL2, which ROCm is actually supported on. So that's what a lot of people would say is just run WSL2 and then run ROCm on top of that.
It doesn't run in Windows, but it does run on Windows subsystem for Linux.
Yes.
Makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. I really do hope that AMD follows through on this promise for future GPUs. RDNA 5, UDNA, whatever. So the future going forward. And if I could give one request to the AMD team, better ROCm documentation. I know when we were testing MI300A, their new Fortran compiler, FClang, had like a 30% improvement in some tests. And we didn't see it in the documentation until I pulled up a Phoronix article that talked about it. Like,
it's but
your one favorite, for now, Dom.
Your favorite person and mine, Dylan and his team have been bashing on the door, trying to get AMD to improve performance and documentation.
Yeah, I know. I disagree with some of his methods, but if it's a means to end, I guess I can get behind it.
Yeah. I've only got 40 minutes left, so let's run through some tech boxes. We don't have short news. We don't have tech shorts. We don't have tech briefs because we are men and we use boxes. So tech boxes. That's like the really loose mental reason why we call it tech boxes. We kind of already went over the UTRAN M.2 thing because I jumped the gun quite a bit. So I'm going to put an image of two of the most controversial people in the world on the screen. It's up to you to guess which two. On the left, we have President Trump. In the middle, we have I always forget what his name is.
I don't know, and
the Grand Prince. I keep wanting calling him Ben Sulayem, but that's the F1 president, who is also equally controversial. The guy on the right is Cristiano Amon, the CEO of Qualcomm.
And the big news here is that Qualcomm is re-entering the server space for making server CPUs. And Ian, as you know, this is not the first time Qualcomm has attempted to enter the server CPU market.
Bear with me.
Yep, I know exactly what you're pulling out.
Yep, here we go.
I have one too. I just don't know where it is.
So just to explain here, this announcement is new data center deployment, AI deployment in the Middle East. Qualcomm's a part of it, and as part of it, Qualcomm just said, "Hey, we're going to be providing the CPUs for this," and
Mhm.
everybody was like, "You don't do server CPUs," and the response was, "Stay tuned," and we were like, "You've done this before."
Mhm.
So I'm going to show this.
So, for you guys who don't know, that is a Qualcomm-centric 2400 CPU. That was Qualcomm's first server CPU. However, that product never officially launched, but that uses a custom core known as Falcor, Falkor. And because I wanted to cover it today, and we had just finished the article, there's an article on the Centric 2400 and the Falcor custom architecture on the CNC site. So, written by
this literally went live today.
Yes, written by Chester, also known as Clam. But yes, this just went live today, and it's a very interesting architecture.
So a quick breakdown here is, was it 2017?
2017.
2017, Qualcomm announced it was going to market with a custom ARM core CPU, 48 ARM cores, ARM v8.2 to compete against the x86 of the time, calling it Centric. This was a massive 3 to 4 year effort already.
Mm-hmm.
They got to the point where they'd even started shipping development platforms to key customers. And then the CEO of Qualcomm basically said, "Oh, this department's 3 years old. It hasn't made any money yet. Let's get rid of it."
So
that was the old CEO, Steve Mollenkopf. So as a result, even though the chip was made, even though the chip had been taped out, even though the chip was well into testing and validation, even though the chip was already in the hands of customers, and platforms were already in the hands of customers, they went, no, and they didn't even sell it.
So we managed to get our board from the CEO of Corellium, who had some of these. And
so Corellium was actually the main customer who got development platforms. Bit of history: Corellium are the company that managed to first virtualize iOS. And the thing is, it was a very big known. There were lawsuits over this, but they were able. If you wanted to do any iOS, Apple smartphone development, you had to have a device. If you can virtualize it on a PC or a server, you don't need a device, and it makes things a lot easier. And so Corellium's business model was basically, we virtualized iOS, but they needed an ARM core to run it on because of the ARM architecture. And none of the market options at the time, like Thunder X2 from Cavium, weren't fast enough. And so they built their ecosystem around Falcor, around Qualcomm's solution. And so they had some hardware.
From what I've heard, a large reason why Qualcomm actually canceled Centric was because this was right in the middle of the attempted buyout by Broadcom. And so they thought that if this wasn't on their balance sheet, it would look better.
Yeah. That's also
hindsight 2020 was a bad decision, but that's what happened.
Yeah.
Was that this was right in the middle of the attempted takeover of Qualcomm by Broadcom. Lots of comms here. But if you would like to read this wonderful article written by Chester, aka Clam.
So I think these are actually the first major public benchmarks of the microarchitecture.
Yes.
Ever. So the thing is, so you see, I've got 2 chips, right? Getting chips is easy. You can go on eBay now, and I think they're like, what, $50 each for the 2400 series?
Something like that. I think they're like $8.
Even cheaper these days. The thing is, there were multiple variants, multiple steppings, technically, But the problem was always motherboards.
Hmm.
I could never get a motherboard. Nobody ever sourced a motherboard. I did a couple of years ago get in contact with the Corellium team, and they said, if you can find us the heatsink design or the OEM behind the heat sinks, we'll send you a board. I never found one. But I have since, literally at Computex, met somebody from the Falcor team
Nice.
who works at a particular company that now works with me.
Mm.
And I said, would you be interested in an interview going on record to tell some stories? And he said, have my NDAs run out yet?
Yeah.
And I said, probably. But we digress. That's not the story here. Isn't Qualcomm made an ARM architecture? The story is Qualcomm is going to make a new server chip, and it's under the guise of this partnership with Humane in the Middle East.
And
these
speaking of announcements with regards to Qualcomm server CPUs, NVLink Fusion, Qualcomm is one of the
Two.
providers listed in the press release, the other being Fujitsu, as you covered in your video about Fujitsu's upcoming Monaca.
Yeah. So
Monaca?
it's based on anime. I'm calling it Monaca.
Okay.
But yeah, the whole point here is that Qualcomm acquired Nuvia several years ago. That core is now called Orion. It's in the Snapdragon. I mean, it's a newly designed core, not necessarily derived from the acquisition, based on the legal notes in the cases. But the goal of Nuvia was always to go into the data center market.
Mm-hmm.
It just so happens that they got acquired by a company who wanted to put them into notebooks and smartphones, with the promise of we'll get to data center when we get to data center. This, I think, is a financial push in that direction that is accelerating that target. I did actually ask Cristiano about that. I said, you'd always promised that we'd eventually get to data center. Is this just the push in the right direction you needed? Is this just a donkey you can pin your tail on? He misunderstood my question and thought my question was, are you working your CPU team too hard?
Huh.
And he's like, our CPU team do really good work. And I'm like, yeah, that's not my question. But yeah, it's the reason why it was announced, a combination of the announcement with Humane, but also the integration of NVLink. Qualcomm still going to have its tech summit later this year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that they're going to at least mention it, and not in a yes, we're still doing it kind of way, and actually give some details. Chances are we won't be able to talk about those details, but it's
yeah. So
to respond to Otto's question, is Fujitsu still doing Spark? No.
They're doing
their line of ARM-based chips is evolved from all the Spark history. So there is that.
I will say one last thing on. Also, have a good one, James. I will say one last thing on the NVLink Fusion. It does kind of feel like a reactive move to UALink to some degree, in my opinion.
But yeah, you remember when we spoke about it in the pre-show?
Yeah.
I don't want to rehash what we said there, but Nvidia still maintains a lot of control.
Yeah.
So the thing with UALink is it's meant to be open. NVLink is.
Fun fact, actually, about NVLink C2C. It's actually a single-ended termination, not differ pairs.
Power. Yeah.
So for some context, PCIe is differing pair, UALink is differing pair. Single-ended is stuff like GDDR or memory. So they're essentially treating it as like a 40 or whatever speed gigabit DDR bus, which is honestly quite interesting. But
isn't HBM single-ended as well? So
maybe, I don't remember, but
it's all the things you put in place to make sure stuff works slows stuff down. So
Yeah.
if you can get it to work without putting that stuff in, you decrease latency, increase bandwidth, and decrease power. So
Mhm.
all these super fast memory and connectivity technologies, you almost need to get all the stuff that makes it work out of the way, and hope you engineer it sufficiently that it works without the security stuff.
Yeah.
Oh no, not security, just the. It's like forward error correction. If you can avoid using forward error correction, you save latency.
Yep.
It's that sort of thing.
So, moving on to a completely different topic, because frankly, I fell in love with this the second I saw it. Silverstone has yet another retro-inspired PC case called the FLP-02, and it is a throwback to the 80s and early 90s, and dear God, do I love it. It's such nostalgia bait, but the turbo button and the keyed lock for the power switch, I love it. And actual working 5.25-inch bays, yes.
Working?
love it.
I thought they were 3D printed because I saw 3D printed versions.
So the actual physical bay, like you could put a 5.25-inch floppy into it, and
Yeah.
it will actually like screw in and be a functional piece of hardware. There are 3D printed faceplates, but that's if you're not using them, and so that it doesn't just look empty. Holy Crivens PC World, do you have a lot of ads?
Yeah, go check out the video. It's got less ads.
Yeah.
But it's a genuine turbo button.
Yes.
And as we all know, the turbo buttons weren't really turbo buttons. They were slow down
they were
buttons.
slow buttons.
But you can't mark it a slow button.
Not unless it's a turbo.
Did they? Worst case pricing for this is $220. I think that's going to be highly dependent on tariff.
Yeah. Let me put it to you this way: even at 200, there are so many people that would buy this.
Yeah.
Like it's such good nostalgia bait. Excuse me, bait. It's yeah. So moving on a little
about
bit.
this.
Yeah, moving on a little bit to Thermalright had a Strix Halo mini PC, which was all in vogue at Computex.
So just for context, this is Thermalright, not Thermaltake. Thermaltake is well known for being cheap and cheerful, and other companies complaining how do they get their costs so low. Thermalright, I'm going to say, has one very distinct claim to fame. Bear with me a second. So I'm a sucker for good air cooling, as I'm sure we all are, right? And Thermaltake had a special edition air cooler back in the X58, X99 days. It looks like this.
Is that all copper?
This is a 4.5 pound pure copper. I mean, that's like it's 2 kilos in metric, right?
It's massive in the traditional word of mass.
You stick that with a 200 CFM fan, it will cool a 500 watt processor easy. You do need to screw it down kind of tight. This was a limited run of 2,000 units. They never sold them all. So one of my local retailers, because I think these were like $200 new, started selling them for 20 quid.
Huh.
And I have another one somewhere.
Next time I'm over, I'm going to steal one of them.
The funny thing is, the latest plates they gave for these were X99. Every time there's a new socket, you have to phone them up and say, "Can I have a new?" So if you, that being said, with how big, you can't use this on a Threadripper because the contact patch is too small. But you stick that on any fiery Intel or AMD desktop CPU, consumer desktop. Just make sure it's upright. Imagine putting it on a board and keeping it there. This weighs more than the highest weight 5090.
Yep.
I have to. You get some reps in. Sorry. Yes, that's my connection with Thermalright. Is this?
Yep. So this, as you can see on the screen, is a. It doesn't really appear through the image, but it's a sub 1 liter Strix Halo system that is a closed loop liquid cooler, which is honestly really impressive. I got to give props to Thermalright. I wonder if you would be able to actually buy this. It would be cool if you could.
So hang on, they had multiple models, didn't they?
Apparently the CLC one is not sub 1 liter. The red skeleton one, that one is apparently sub 1 liter.
Yeah. So you can see the SSD on the back. You can see there's a fan here, but this is I understand that reference. Yeah, it's Strix. One of the problems with Strix Halo, and I was actually having a call with somebody about this earlier today, because it could be, as somebody who was closely related to a competitor saying, we've been hearing that the volumes for Strix Halo are super low because nobody wants it. And I turned around and I went, there are a lot of people who want it, but the OEMs didn't want to pick it up initially. That's why we have HP and their mini-PC, it being twice the capacity needed, volume needed, because they wanted to fit it into a chassis that could support a discrete GPU. And it's like, this is a product that doesn't need it. And stuff like that. And it's right now we're starting to see designs like this and other people with mini PCs now coming out the work.
Lenovo is actually making one apparently as well.
Minis Forum is going to make one. We've obviously got the framework desktop. Zotac is, and I think when AMD announced this, or when they pre-briefed the analysts, we all said, you got to make as many of these as possible because they will fly off the shelves.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to play. I mean, it's annoying. George has 2. I have 0.
Yes, I have 2. I may be bugging somebody for more.
But I would argue you probably have the worst 2. You have the 2-in-1.
I have the 2-in-1, and I have the laptop.
The super expensive laptop.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I have the 2 worst, but you know what? If they're the worst, then God, is it a funny product? And honestly, I quite love it.
So just a correction, the this red one is Strix Point. The Strix Halo is that one.
Yep. Dom, I actually don't know your address, and I wouldn't even ship them to you if I could.
This is the thing. It's like I say, I want to replace my 64-core Zen 4 Threadripper Pro system with one of these. But I mean, I also want it to have a PCIe slot. So I'm on batch 2 for the framework. We spoke to framework are at Computex.
I hope that they send me a system, and I may be able to even get the HP desktop from HP. I may have 4 Strix Halo systems.
Network them together and mine some.
I fully plan on if I can get Yeah, I have funny plans. Anyway,
News.
a little bit more AMD news. AMD acquires, I want to say Inno, but I think it's Enosemi.
I'm going to call it Enosemi.
Okay.
It- it- it-
Enosemi.
It sounds like a northern name for a truck. Enosemi. It's what do you call it? What does a northerner called post? Email. It's
So,
but anyway, one of the big consensuses that the industry has is that eventually we're going to go optic chip to chip, but you need a technology to do that. AMD has invested in a few companies, Nvidia's invested in a few companies, Intel's invested in a few companies.
I think the biggest name in CPO co-package optics is probably IR Labs.
The biggest name in CPO is Broadcom.
Yes, but in terms of like the startups that are being funded, is probably IR Labs.
It's Broadcom. So Broadcom and Nvidia are the only people with 200 gig SerDes right now. In silicon validated. And yes, there are a number of optical companies coming up, all doing something very slightly different. But the one that's meant to be specifically chip to chip or chip to memory, with chiplets, yes, is IR. Marvell's got a thing. Light Matter's doing something slightly different. Celestial's doing something slightly different. But yeah, it's they've decided. So AMD's decided to acquire a company to help accelerate the research.
So, what's funny was this press release has since been edited. In the original release, it said last week welcomed the Enosemi team. They forgot the "we" in front of the welcomed.
Right. Yes. Typo.
But the Enosemi team, I believe, actually has functional silicon.
Oh, okay.
They've taped out and have working chips. I think with actually Xilinx FPGAs, which is unsurprising considering what's said in the press release, which I think makes them, in terms of the startup market, I think that makes them the only ones other than IR Labs to have a taped out chiplet in silicon.
Light Matter would argue that they have, but their focus is on the interposer. Celestial would argue that they have, but their go-to-market is different.
Okay.
So it's optics is in a bit of a flux right now because the design lead-in is expensive and high and takes time. Most of these optics companies aren't predicting proper revenues until 27, 28, 29. Again, massive design considerations if you want to go optics. I hopefully will see optics go first into chip to memory. So you won't be reliant on your shoreline for your HBM anymore. And you can expand that. There isn't much to this press release. Kind of like their other acquisitions, such as Silo AI and Mipsology, which they acquired last year, and then also ZT Systems, but that was a bit more. ZT Systems was practical. These two were more for software and tools. This is definitely much an IP acquisition and talent acquisition. That being said, they're still invested in other companies doing similar things. So
they actually just invested in IR Labs.
Well, yeah, that was their Series D last year.
Yep. No, this year. I think this year.
No, last year. The Series IR Series D was last year.
Was it? Okay.
109. 155 million, I want to say.
Yes, that
Um,
sounds about right.
But it's always hard when when a company gets investment, because you're not sure if it's a technical engagement or a purely financial engagement, right? It's where a company like IR is invested in by Intel, AMD, and Nvidia. So which one of those have the technical engagement? It's hard to tell. But yeah, so acquisition by AMD, that was something that it was literally just yesterday, wasn't it, or this morning?
It was yesterday or 2 days ago, one of the two.
Now this one has me interested. This next tech boxer.
Yeah, and I think this may be our last one for today.
I do want to cover the next one briefly.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
It turns out the only game in town isn't just Qualcomm and MediaTek anymore, on Samsung technically. Xiaomi, smartphone maker that makes lots of smartphones, has just announced their first phone with their own home-built chip. It's still ARM. It's still very similar to what you've seen before. However, they instead of buying the chip from MediaTek or buying the chip from Qualcomm or buying the chip from Samsung, they used physical design services teams internally and externally to build their own chip at TSMC, which is kind of cool because it's going to be unique. It's going to be a value add. So this is built on the same node as Dimensity 9400. My Dimensity 9400 arrived yesterday. I want to buy one of these, but it's going to look like it's roughly $1,000 to get it into the country. And I'm not sure I'm made of that much money. Because I would like to test it. And make sure some of my tools aren't broken. But it's two big cores, 2 X925s. You've got 4 A725s up here, another 2 here, and then you've got 2 A520s down here. So it's a 10 core, 10 core design, which means that it's going to perform very well in multi-threaded benchmarks against the Dimensity 9400, which is only 8 core, and the Snapdragon 8 Elite, which is only 8 core. It's got, I think, one of the biggest Immortalis.
I think that's the biggest configuration of that.
That's been
GPU.
That's in a smartphone.
Yes.
There may be bigger ones in other.
I think that's the biggest one that the G92 supports. I think it's 16 cores.
Yeah, I think it's 12 in the Dimensity.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so they've gone all out. And according to GeekerOne, it beats the Dimensity 9400 in performance and power efficiency. And if we look at the die size here, the reason why it's smaller is because it doesn't have a modem. So they are using. Xiaomi have also built their own 4G modem, not a 5G modem. So we think that they're going to be buying in the MediaTek modem for this.
Yep. So in this article from GSM Arena, it says that the NPU is custom. Apparently it's not. Apparently it's actually a MediaTek NPU.
Really?
Yes. So they actually it's probably one very similar to the one in the 9400.
Did they use MediaTek ASIC services for this chip?
They could have. I would not be surprised if they did.
Yeah. This isn't a ARM CSS, is it?
No,
it's 10
no.
core. They don't do a 10 core. I did.
They don't have a 2 prime core, I don't think.
So I did meet a company at the TSMC event that does have a CSS solution, but it's a network switch.
That Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
It's ARM's Financials a couple of weeks ago. They said they had 13 CSS customers, 6 compute, 6 infrastructure, 1 automotive, and only 1 or 2 tape outs. And so the company I spoke to, I think, is one of the first tape outs.
Okay.
And the last thing to talk about is something that literally popped on my desk a couple of hours ago, and it's quite dry. So the long and short of it is the US Department of Commerce has now implemented restrictions that EDA tools cannot be sold to China. So an EDA tool or tools is essentially a set of software that helps you design a chip. It's essentially the chip design software. 2 main companies, Cadence and Synopsys. There are some other ones, Siemens also do some. But as of today, the US government has said that those companies can no longer sell their software to China. Can't sell licenses to software. So depending on how much of this software is bound by network license, a lot of this software is now used in the cloud. They can no longer have service contracts with China. So as a result, I got this email from Synopsys. I haven't got a similar one from Cadence yet, but they've had to suspend their financial results and guidance because of this as of now. 20% of Synopsys's revenue comes from China. I'm pretty sure with Cadence it's a very similar number. Both companies have had severe stock drops. As a the government just suddenly says you've lost 20% of your business.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, Synopsys is a client of mine. I've been working really well with them. Hopefully this doesn't affect me, but it is concerning, right? As Shraf2K says, isn't that just going to accelerate their own in-house development? Yeah. As we said before in the pre-show, this is Jensen's argument. It's dangerous to assume that the only place you can buy AI from is the US, right? I actually had a discussion with somebody at the TSMC event a couple of days ago, and he said, are you aware of how many new EDA startups there are? And I'm like, no. It's like, well, we work with half a dozen. Now, EDA is a big place. Analog, digital, simulation, verification, custom hardware, custom software. It's a massive thing. But if you're an EDA startup focusing on one very specific thing, especially in this new world of AI, designing chips with AI is something that I believe Cadence in their recent keynote yearly conference said 50% of chips now that use Cadence tools use some form of AI in their design, either to assist the developers in telling them what they're seeing, or to help build tests, or to optimize place and route or library placing or what have you, to optimize design. So this is big. This is, along with the AI diffusion rules, along with the restricted selling into China, along with the entity list. It's annoying because this only affects 2 companies, or 2 plus a handful.
Technically, it also will affect Siemens as well.
Well, that's why I'm saying 2 plus a handful more.
Yeah.
So Siemens is like if there were 3 players, Siemens would be the middle third child, right? Everybody else is a lot smaller than that. It's so this market segment, despite having both of them having their keynotes and conferences, are suddenly going to have to decide, well, what do now? How can lobby? And yeah, if China builds their own EDA software stack, I'm pretty sure Huawei already does have their own, then it's just going to become less and less reliant on the US and less reliant on US revenue, to use Jensen's argument. Most of these companies are massively multinational anyway. I think Synopsys' main office outside the US is in Armenia.
That's an
They've got an
interesting
office
one.
of about 4,000 people in Yerevan.
Interesting.
So, yeah, it's going to be down to those things. Paradoxy asks, Huawei already has their own EDA. They may not use it for their most leading chips, but given that Synopsys and Cadence couldn't have been selling to them anyway because of Entity List, you got to bet your bottom dollar they're using some amalgam of tools developed internally or locally grown. Huawei's revenue is now back above where it was pre-Entity List. So any thoughts of Huawei dissolving into nothing? So, yeah, that literally came through just as we were sorting this out. And just to end on a plus note, because that is really negative, 80 Plus has decided there needs to be a new thing above titanium.
I will say the interesting part here is actually the low end stuff is the 5% has to be over 90% efficiency, which is neat.
Yeah.
So 5% load, at 5% load, the PSU has to be at least 90% efficient, which is really cool.
And that's where most power supplies are realistically operate anyway, 5 to 20%. The thing is, for people who don't know, 80 Plus is a bit of a scam. As in, it's one regulatory body, everybody has to pay in. If you buy a power supply that's already 80 Plus Gold related, you can't then stick the 80 Plus related and resell it. You have to get it revalidated under your company name, because that's how they get the revenue. However, our friend Aris over at Hardware Busters has created a new validation system, which is a lot more stringent, called cybernetics. And so now 80 Plus has competition, and I have a feeling this is the result of that competition. And with that, I actually do have to jump on a call in 2 minunits.
Yep.
So it's we got through a lot there. Yep. For it being a relatively unquiet few weeks, and we've been busy, but the news, it turns out there's tons of stuff going on, and we could speak about it for hours. But yes, I have to bounce.
So thanks to all of you who have been here for another Tech Poutine. We really appreciate it. You can find Ian at Ian Cuttress on Twitter. That's 1T, 2 S's. And you can find me at System360 Cheese. Our written content can be found on more-more.com for Ian and chipsandcheese.com for myself. And we look forward to seeing you all next time. Have a good one, folks.
Team America Emergency Wave. And stay tuned for our improv video coming soon. If you like this content, there are multiple ways to support the channel. You can like and subscribe this video, and many thanks for doing so. There's also Patreon, which gives you access to our Discord. There's a merchandise store and a newsletter, links in the description. For all of you who do contribute, thank you. You are keeping me well fed.